Now for something entirely different. It's only 119 pages long, but it makes a refreshing change from the books of the serious subject that I usually discuss here. I'm referring to Puzzletov, a collection of Jewish brain teasers, puzzles and enigmas to drive you totally meshuggah. This is not the first book by Peter Weisz, who is the author of more than a dozen personal histories, including Yearning to be Free. Jews have always been puzzling people who enjoyed a good intellectual challenge, writes the author, from the Passover Seder with Who Knows One, in which the entire spectrum of Jewish theology is laid out in a 1-2 buckle my shoe guessing game, to the Jewish sacred texts such as the Talmud that is filled with brain teasers and riddles. However, all for a good purpose. But you don't have to be Jewish to enjoy this book. And talking about enjoyment, it's my great pleasure to welcome the author Peter Weisz to the studio.
The pleasure is all mine, Mr. Bingham. It's great to be here.
You have come a long way from your home in Florida, and you've chosen a beautiful time of the year for your visit. So, Baruch haba, welcome to the homeland of the Jewish people.
It's a great pleasure to be here at this particular time. Yesterday we had the great pleasure of celebrating Shavuot. We were on a moshav in the lower Galilee, and we were singing and dancing and enjoying the holiday out in the open with our friends. This morning, on our way here to Jerusalem, we made a stop that really impressed me about how much the Jewish people in Israel enjoy puzzles. We stopped at a place called a puzzle room, or an escape room, in Tel Aviv, and this was an amazing experience. It's a game, you're locked into a room and you try to escape. We had a wonderful time doing that this morning.
Now, I'm sure this isn't your first time in Israel. Are you here this time specifically to launch your new book, Puzzletov?
Partially, not specifically. We have a tradition in our family every few years to visit our sister city, to our community. The city is Safat in the Upper Galilee, and also Rosh Pina, and we have several communities there that we support. And every few years, my family and I come here to Israel to do volunteer work for several weeks, and that's the main purpose of our visit this time.
Though in the past you have written some light-hearted books of general interest, but you're best known for your serious works, biographies, as I mentioned in the short intro. So what gave you the idea of writing Puzzletov, a book of Jewish brain teasers?
That's a good question. As you said, I've been writing for many years. I've been writing people's personal histories, memoirs, Jewish people, Gentiles, men, women, over a dozen books, helping people record their life stories. During that process, for a number of years, I worked as a religious school teacher once a week, and I would teach young teenagers, pre-teenagers as well, about Torah, about Jewish heritage, about modern Jewish history, etc. And our classes would meet on Sunday mornings. And I found that it was very effective if on Sunday mornings to wake up these youngsters who had probably stayed out late the night before, to start off my class with a brain teaser, with a puzzle, with a riddle, in order to get their brain cells stimulated, in order to get them kind of in the mood to start thinking. And this worked so well that over the years I started collecting these puzzles. And it came to a point where I had enough of them that I thought it might be a good idea to publish them in a book.
You've just preempted my next question, which was how long it took you to collate this collection.
This started many, many years ago, but I was not in the active pursuit of finding them for a book. I would collect them here and there and file them away. I am, at the moment, however, working on a sequel. And now I am assiduously looking for every puzzle I can get my hands on, and I'm collecting them much faster. The puzzles in this book, some of them may be familiar. They're, traditional puzzles. But what I've done is put a sort of a Jewish twist to it.
Are you yourself a good problem solver?
Well, I like to think I am. I think everyone likes to think that they are.
So when you first heard these brain teasers, were you able to solve them?
Many of them. Sometimes I needed help, just like anyone else, and that's part of the fun.
As a kind of guide, you marked each puzzle with a degree of difficulty. Is it a special skill, or does it point to the level of intelligence if one has difficulty with even the simplest puzzles?
On the contrary, people manifest intelligence in many different ways. One of them is what they call the right brain method, where they are analytical and are very quick at putting pieces together. Other people are much more, let's say, creative. They look at things from a different perspective. The ability to solve riddles and puzzles like this, in my opinion, is not an indication of general intelligence.
Now, I believe that you created some of them specially for the book. Are you a mathematical wizard?
Far from it, but I do enjoy mathematics. But I want to point out that not all of the puzzles in the book require any type of mathematical, other than the most basic mathematical skill. I've tried to gear this book primarily for young readers, like the ones that I was teaching in my class. There's no calculus required here. They're all basically very simple math, or no math at all.
In the second part of the book, you don't only give the solutions, but you go into some detail how they're being arrived at. That's unusual. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, the answer is that I wanted to do more than simply challenge people intellectually as you do in a typical puzzle book. Let's face it, there's many, many books out there like this, full of puzzles. What makes this one exceptional? I attempted to do something more than that, and what I attempted to do was impart some Jewish education, some learning about our history, about our traditions, about the Talmud, about Israel. I wanted to put in every puzzle a little bit of information, and if it's not in the question, it'll be in the answer. And so you have the enjoyment of solving the puzzle, but in the process, you're also learning something, and that was my objective here.
Perhaps you should give us a couple of samples of what's in the book.
I'd be happy to. I've selected two of them because they do not require a great deal of mathematical skill. In the United States, we have a tradition of the Old West, of the cowboys, etc. Now, not everybody knows it, but there used to be Jewish cowboys as well that used to ride around in the Old West as well. So this riddle is about just such a cowboy. He was out riding, and he happened to ride into town on Shabbos. And he stayed in town for just 3 days. And at the end of 3 days, he rode out of town on Shabbos. Now, how is it possible that he rode into town on Shabbos, he only stayed for 3 days, and he rode out of town on Shabbos? Well, let's give the reader a moment to ponder that. And of course, Shabbos is just once a week. The Shabbos is Shabbat, or the Sabbath, and Saturdays. And a week, of course, is something that comes from the Torah. It's the only measurement of time that is not hinged upon some astronomical event. The year is the rotation of the earth around the sun, for example, and the month is the moon. So this is something that strictly comes from the Torah, is the idea of the week. So how does that possible? Well, the fact is, he rode into town on Shabbat because Shabbat was the name of his horse. For another one?
Just one more.
All right. This is called the Bar Mitzvah Brother. 13-year-old Jared stepped to the microphone to deliver his Bar Mitzvah speech. What he had to say next shocked the congregation. I recently learned that I have a brother from whom I was separated at birth, and I'd like you all to meet him. Out walked another young man who looked exactly like Jared. He approached the microphone. He said, "Shabbat Shalom. My name is Joel, and I am Jared's brother. And Jared and I were born on the same day, and we were born in the same place. And we have the same mother and the same father," Jared said. "But we are not twins." So the solution, of course, after a little bit of thought, in the English language, the word twins refers to simply two. A moment later, another brother walked out on the bima, and he also looked like the first two. So, of course, we discovered that they are two-thirds of a set of triplets, and therefore not twins. That's the solution.
I hope my listeners enjoyed that. Well, I'm sure that this just 119-page book will provide the reader with hours of fun and even liven up conversations around the coffee table and in the younger circles. Puzzle Solved by Peter Weisz is published by Giffen Publishing House of Jerusalem and New Jersey and available from Amazon and all good book outlets. Peter Weisz, thank you for having been my guest.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It was my pleasure.